Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call order at the meeting of the Finance Committee. Serving on behalf of the committee will be myself as chair, Councilor Gould, Councilor Manning Martin, Councilor McGinn, and Councilor Rossignol. All of the councilors are, as always, invited to participate. The first item on the agenda this evening is a bond order request for a feasibility study for Welch School repairs and renovations in the amount of $1.2 million. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Council. I'm here today to take the next step in the potential Welch School project, which I think all of you are very familiar with. Biggest parts of the project is the new windows, which are obviously needed, and complete revamping of the heating system. Number of years we put in a request with the MSBA, and this year, last fall, we were invited into the feasibility phase of the project. To give you a little overview of what that is, it's a period, an eligibility period of several months, then we have certain deliverables that we need to provide to the MSBA. We met in December, on December 12th of 2018, and we were presented with our list of deliverables. There was an initial compliance certification. We needed to name a school building committee, which I'll talk about in a moment. We had to put together an educational profile questionnaire, online enrollment projections, an on enrollment certification, and then a maintenance and capital planning information document. The next step for us is the local vote authorization. The reason this is important and why we're here today a little ahead of schedule, this isn't due until December 27th of 2019 is the local vote authorization. We've been trying to, as best we can, put this on a fast track, knowing the needs of the Welch School. We're trying to move this project ahead to get onto their next agenda, which is in October, to try to move this project forward. We did receive some disheartening news last month when we attended an MSBA meeting, and we have our superintendent, Kara Murtag, here. Let me just take a step back. Our school building committee is very similar to the school building committee when we did the Higgins Middle School. Myself, our superintendent, Ms. Murtag, Mike Gingras, our finance director, Dan Doucette, our purchasing agent. We have two members of the council, Peter McGinn and Ryan Melville. We have two members of the school committee, Jared Hockman and Beverly Griffin Dunn. Jim Hafey, our facilities director, and the principal, Michelle Massa, as well. There are other members that come to different meetings, but that's the essential group. The MSBA had a meeting, invited us to sit with them to review our progress, and at that time, Ms. Murtag went in with Jared Hockman, Beverly Griffin Dunn, and Jim Hafey. At that time, they told us that this project is scheduled for 4 to 5 years out. I'm really concerned about making the Welch School operational and functional for the next 4 to 5 years. So what we've been trying to do is move at least our end along as quickly as we can. We've met every time frame, and the next one is the local vote authorization for the $1.2 million, which I'll explain shortly. Again, that was due December 27th, 2019. We're trying to beat that by 4 months, almost 4 months, so that we can get on the October agenda to hopefully be invited to the next stage, which would be the but what we would be invited into the be invited into the actual designing and presentation for the scope of the project and actual cost for the project. That's when an owner's project manager would be hired and an architect firm that would be hired as well. We had, when the Higgins project, I think you're familiar, we had Danisco Design was the architect, and our Daedalus was our owner's project manager. That would be the next phase to move forward with the hiring of those folks so that we actually get into the design, the budget, the scope of the work, and take that next step. It was disheartening to hear that this project, they're looking at 4 to 5 years out. That is going to be very difficult to make the Welch School functional for that period of time. We need to try to move this along quicker. I'm here today to ask for that local vote authorization. I know the language has been presented to you. 1.2 million is the request. That's the number that came from the MSBA, and that's for the hiring and work of the owner's project manager, their fee, the designer fee, and the cost of the preliminary and schematic design. Now keep in mind that we would be, if we move forward with this phase and then move forward with construction at some point in the future, we'd be eligible for, when we did the Higgins Middle School, it's 56.14% of the costs. In your sheet that you were given, it's 54.79% reimbursement. We got moved up in the Higgins Middle School up over 56 because we qualified for because we had some green components and green programs in the project. We got kicked up another almost 1.5 to get us over 56%. We intend to qualify for that again with this project. So even though we're asking for the 1.2 million now, two important parts of this is that we would be eligible for reimbursement at 56% as we move forward with the project. The second important part of this is we have another vote that would be presented to you. That's the actual request to fund the project itself. This is for the preliminary work, the design work, the schematics. I'd have to come back to you for a vote for the actual funding costs, which it's hard to say right now what that will be, depending on the work that's done by our owner's project manager and the design team, to really get in there and find out what needs to be replaced beyond the windows and how far gone the heating systems are and the replacements that will be necessary. So that's where we're here today. Certainly available to answer any questions. Ms. Murtagh, Beverly Griffin-Dunn is here, Dan Doucette, and Mike Gingras certainly available to answer any questions. Our goal is to get on to the October, and I believe it's 18th agenda, 23rd, October 23rd agenda with the MSBA to hopefully be invited into that next phase.
Councilors. Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mayor, for your presentation. And I'm sure this just seems like things are just a little different. Maybe things changed over the last few years with how they're disseminating money. But if you could clear up for me some of the language that's used in this motion being requested to go forward. Now, I understand you're asking for 1.2 million for a feasibility study. So just for a feasibility study, that seems like a huge number. So I'm sure if you could break it down for me, it will make more sense, because there's a lot of language in here that really isn't defining for me. I mean, they say in the top portion of the motion being requested to go forward, it says Peabody may be eligible for a grant from the MSBA, and the amount would be determined at another date. And then if you go to the last paragraph, Mayor, it says the City of Peabody acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need as determined by the MSBA, and any costs of the city incurs in excess of the grant, kind of also another unknown, like how much is the grant going to be, and basically how much do we get to recoup from the 1.2, the grant, and any reimbursements if that comes out of the 54% too. Hopefully my question is clear. I know there's many parts to it, but those are my sticking points right now. Thank you.
Fair questions. The 1.2 million came from the MSBA. That was not our number. That's what they told us to move forward on at our meeting and in the conversations we had with our representatives at the MSBA. We are basing it on our number from what we received during the Higgins project, 54.79%. It's a grant, it's a reimbursement, it's just money from the MSBA that would come back to us. It's all based on a formula depending on a number of criteria, your city's financial situation. A city like Lawrence, they get about a 90% reimbursement. A city like the town of Andover gets maybe a 15 to 20% reimbursement. It just depends on your financial condition. So we are anticipating and have been told to rely on the 54.79%. I think we can get that moved up a little bit again, reaching certain or having certain parts to our proposal that would be green approved. And there's also some maintenance work that we could do to potentially get a little bit more as well. I think we'd be looking in that 55 to 57 range, but we're not going to know the specific number until the next phase. But I'm just working off of what we did with the Higgins.
Thank you. So to break it down, it's 54%, or if you can get more green monies, of reimbursement of the 1.2.
So when the Higgins Middle School, our number was 54.79%. We did get bumped up, as I mentioned, because of some green initiatives that we included in the project to get us 56.14%. This 1.2 million, whatever we spend for this phase, that would be, and we move forward with the project, that would all be reimbursed to us. That 56 point would be reimbursed to us. Now, if we don't move forward with the project,
That was my next and last question.
yep,
Thank
and
you.
that's the most important question. If we do not move forward with the project, so let's say the project comes back at 5 million, and we decide not to move forward with the project, we would not be eligible for reimbursement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, that's reassuring. So, Council Gould?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Superintendent Murtagh and School Committee Member Dunn. Thank you for being here. Mr. Mayor, can you go over the next step? We do the feasibility study, and then we present it, the findings of the feasibility study to the MSBA? Is that how that works? And then, even though we're 4 or 5 years, we can get in the loop? Or is there any... How does it work after the feasibility study, Mr. Mayor? Please.
So thank you. In our meetings and discussions with the MSBA, we've already obviously articulated our strong desire to move this project up significantly. We have not been given any assurances that that could happen, but they said certainly that any efforts to move the project along would help us. With this vote tonight, we would move forward immediately, seeking to get on the agenda for October 23. We would get invited, hopefully, invited into the next phase, which is the hiring of the owner's project manager, the hiring of the designer, the architect. They would come in and they work with the MSBA during this process. They have MSBA representatives that will assist them with this process. But actually doing their work to research the building, what the needs are, establish costs, and scope out the project. They would come up with a budget, the number that we would be working off of. There would be another local vote authorization that we would come back to the council, to you, requesting X amount of dollars, and at that time be looking for a vote. And then that would kick into the next phase, which would actually be construction. This is a little bit longer time frame than the middle school, actually. And again, I'm a little concerned about that time frame.
To me, having been in that building a number of times, it is a tired building, and would be foolish, I think, not to at least go forward on the feasibility study. So I'm behind it. Thank you.
I had a number of hands, but let me take the committee first. Council Rosano, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing I've noticed that's a little bit different with this feasibility study as prior to Councilor Manning Martin's point, the reason why the dollar number is so high, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, is that the OPM and the design is built into the initial feasibility study where it used to not be in the past. I know, being on the school committee, when we first send out the feasibility study, those $2 amounts weren't included. That's why the dollar amount was lower than it is currently. The other question I have is I know we were looking at bonding for the 1.2. Is there any thought to take that out of reserve where we're going to be reimbursed from the MSBA when and if the project gets built, and then we can put it back in reserve instead of bonding the money, having to pay interest rate on that bond. If we have it in reserve, we can then pay for it and then replenish the reserve when we get the money back from MSBA. Thank you.
Gingrich?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a possibility. They still require the vote so that we commit to a bond issue, but that's something we could discuss and see if it makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you. Because to me, I mean, you're paying interest on a bond. I'd rather lower the amount that we're going to be paying if we already have it, and we can kind of replenish our reserve when we get reimbursed back from the state. So that's the money piece. As far as 5 years out, Mr. Mayor, I completely agree with you 100%. When I was on the school committee 2 years ago, 2 years before that, we wanted to fast track the Welch School windows because they were a priority then. So I think us fast tracking this is extremely important. Kids can't look out the window now. And not only that, the way the Welch is set up, the heating system is tied into the windows. So it is a pretty extensive project, and I'm 100% in favor of it. The only question I had, again, is just the funding source and taking it out of bond versus reserve. Thank you.
Councilor McGinn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just kind of reiterating one of the points that Councilor Rossignol just made, from his perspective as a former school committee person, you know, the school committee brought this to us multiple times over the past several years, and each time we tried to prioritize it here as well, and I tried to advocate for that. This window work and this HVAC work is long overdue. It's got to happen, and this is our only path, our only reasonable pathway to getting it done. So a member of this, as a member of this council, and that represents much of the Welch School community, and a member of the school building committee is along with Councilor Melville. I'd like to advocate that we advance this tonight, get this local vote behind us, and do everything we can, do our part to try to accelerate this process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just to drive the point home, I think this project's important for a number of reasons, but I think this project would extend the life of that building significantly. And I also think new windows, new heating system, there would be a significant savings in energy costs with this project, which would help us in those years ahead. So, and just the fact that for the general atmosphere and environment and culture for that school, I think this is important. I think all of us agree with that.
Councilor Turco? Other councilors? You were up there, Councilor Melville, and then Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick comments. One thing is my first time being on a building committee, and I have to say I'm very impressed with the staff that the city has involved in this. I can tell you that at every opportunity, the choice was always to try to do this with the taxpayer in mind, but this is a good deal. And I'm a neighbor of the Welch School, and I went to the Welch School. I'm a guest reader now at the Welch School as well, and it's a fantastic place. And you know, a lot of the students that go there have challenges outside of the school, and you want them to be in that school in the most comfortable environment possible, because that might be the only comfortable environment some of those kids are going to be in. And I think that this is, you know, fast tracking this. I can tell you that is the goal of everybody on that building committee. I can tell you from the school department, and their communications regarding this are the same. And I would tell everyone that the logistics that are going to be involved in this project when it is approved and when we do get to it are going to be substantial, and are going to require a great deal of commitment from both the city, the school department, and the families that do go to that school. So I just wanted to make those two comments based on some of the discussions we've had, and when it does get to the council floor, I will be fully in support of this. Thank you.
Councilor O'Neill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two basic questions. One is, understand about trying to get this this project fast-tracked. But if we apply in the fall, for the October meeting, or even get on the December agenda, if it's not accepted into the projects that are going to be considered, do we get into it? It just come up next year? We apply again, for this particular project, or does it just stay in the queue, if you will?
Yep, good question. I think the big hurdle for us was to be invited into the program. We had been denied, and it had been at least 3 or 4, could have even been more years than that. But to get that invitation last fall, early winter into the program was the big hurdle for us. Once we got it invited, it became very clear that they're very interested in this project as well and see this as a project that's needed for the Welch School and for our city. We have excellent representatives from the MSBA that have been working with us. I fully believe that they are on board with moving forward with this project. So I think the October 23rd meeting is, we've had all our ducks in a row. We've met every time frame so far. I fully expect to receive a positive recommendation from them. I would have liked to have even been at an earlier meeting. I just wanted to be clear, the MSBA, there are no summer meetings. We couldn't try to get on their agenda for July and August, September. Their first meeting that we can attain is the October 23rd meeting. We need to get this vote to them by October 15th to get on that agenda. Certainly at that time, there is a possibility they could hold us to November if there's not something that's ready. But I think in working with them, we got the language specifically from them, we got the number specifically from them, and we've been working with them on all the other deliverables that are needed. And again, we have excellent representatives in the MSBA that we've established a good relationship with. So I'm feeling pretty confident.
Thank you. And the second part of the question is and I know that the whole idea of this is to get a feasibility study to look at the various options, replacing HVAC, the windows, and maybe even a replacement, different options. But do our building, maintenance folks have an idea of if we had to do the HVAC and windows ourselves, what rough cost would that be if we somehow had to fund that ourselves without any support from the state? I know that's hard because we're trying to get a feasibility study, but I'm just curious to see if we have a rough estimate.
We don't yet. In fact, we've had some recent meetings, and Jim Hafey is trying to establish that for us. I think we have to look at all of our options, being 4 to 5 years out. There's going to have to be some work to that school done in the meantime to make sure that the heating system is appropriate for our students. And that the school is functional. So there's going to be money that we need to put in. If this does play out 4 or 5 years, which would be disappointing, but if it does, we're still going to have to put money into this building in the short term. That work is being done now. I think probably we can put it on maybe on an October or November agenda, as we really, if we're invited in October, the OPM and the architect wouldn't be hired till later this year. There's a lot of work going on in the meantime, and I think we can evaluate our other options at that time. Does that make sense?
No, thank you. I just was curious, and I support this. I'm not a member of this committee, but I support this. Just trying to get a sense so that people understand that this cost, this $1.2 million. Once again, the state, that's their number. We're not coming up with it on our own. We have to get this number in there and pay, once again, like people said, the project manager and the designer fee. It's the minimum requirement to even be considered. So I support it. Thank you.
And I think Councilor Rossignol mentioned it well. This was a number that given to us. It does factor in a number of costs. But yeah, the language and the number are directly from the MSBA.
Councilor Charis.
I'll be real brief. The other thing we're not realizing, I don't think the public, when I was on the school committee before Tom got off too, one of the things we're having a problem is they don't make the parts anymore for this heating system. And that we have maintenance people who've been in the system for so long understand how they can create those parts. And those people are leaving also, they are retiring. Since I've been on the board, there was 4 of them who created these pots, built them, because they don't make them any longer. So we have that to be looking at right down the line, that we ain't gonna be able to get the pots to keep it going. That was it, just a little bit of information.
Mr. Rosington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. The school committee already voted on this, correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, it was a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Council McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to ask if there's no additional comments from councilors, I'd be prepared to make a motion.
I've been patiently waiting for my comments. So I'll let you do that as soon as I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to abbreviate that because I know procedurally we need to read the whole motion, but I assume you're going to maybe do that at the report of committee?
I'll read it out at committee, yeah.
Okay, so the
I'm
motion,
I'll call for the motion in a minute. I just wanted to make a comment. The 1.2 million, I kind of remember we did a feasibility study of the entire system for under $100,000. And but I think what's happened is the school building authority finally got caught on to what was going on, that you would do these feasibility studies and use general information about average cost of renovation per square foot, and you come up with a number. And then when you put in for the grant, the number was 3x what they started with. And so now it looks like what they're doing is throwing the engineering costs and the architectural fees up front so that you come in with a harder number and it's more difficult to blow through. So the 1.2 wouldn't be such a mystery. It's not like a rabbit out of the hat. They're figuring if there was only a 10% cost to carry, then it would be a $12 million project, but it looks like most project costs are between 20 and 25%, so you're looking at a $5 to $6 million total project, of which this would carry against that. The scary part is there's no guarantee, and the fact that they said 5 years, is it still a fact that you cannot commence any construction until such time as the grant is approved by the school building authority?
I believe you're correct.
It used to be, the hook in the whole deal used to be, we'd go down a road thinking we could, and the 5 years is the troubling point there, because the hook used to be that if it still is, if you started any construction, you invested any dollars in fixing what you're asking to renovate, then you deny the grant. So your 1.2 plus anything you put into it would be your own cost. So there is a little bit of risk in the 1.2, and there's no doubt in my mind the building needs to work. The thing I wouldn't do is I wouldn't ever deny this on the fact of risk, because we did that once, and we lost the high school on the deal because we were afraid that the risk was too high, that we weren't going to get reimbursed for 17 years. Well, ended up everybody got reimbursed within 100%. So it was like, what a bad deal that was, to deny based on risk. The only other question I have, though, is did they accept your prioritization need for a new high school, or did they deny in this round?
We are expecting to find out in November.
All right, I have no further questions. Councilman McGinn.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the motion is to request funding for the appropriation of $1,200,000 for the costs of a feasibility study for repairs and renovations to the Welsh Elementary School. And the balance of the language of the motion will be in accordance with the attached language to the communication from His Honor the Mayor dated August 15, 2019. So moved.
Heard the motion by Councilman McGinn to dispense with the reading of the motion and to Vote to approve $1.2 million for a feasibility study for the Welsh School. On the motion, any comments? See? Yeah, we'll do that at the general. And it'll be advertised, the bond will be advertised, obviously, but we'll do that at the regular meeting. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin, Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Council.
Next item on the agenda is a transfer of funds from solid waste recycling. Mr. Gingrich.
Thank you. This is a final cleanup transfer for 2019. The only shortage we had was in the solid waste account, and I'm proposing we transfer from police salaries where we had anticipated a need, came in a little bit less than we had anticipated, so there's some funding available there for this $104,578.26.
Questions on behalf of the council? Any questions from the committee? Being none, I'll take a motion by Council Gould.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Move to transfer police salaries in the amount of $104,578.26 from public service police salaries account number 100-2100-511110 to solid waste recycling account number 100-0310-53142 in the amount of $104,578.26. So moved.
On the motion by Council
Thank you,
Gould,
John.
any questions or comments? Councilor Manning Martin.
Yes, on the amount, we overestimated on the, there was an overage. Where was the overage in the police salaries, where the overestimate was?
Close to the end of the year, I came in with some projections for what we would need to close out in police department for the different salary accounts. And at the end of the day, there was some money left over.
Right, and how does that happen? Do people retire? Did they change lanes?
Well, the toughest estimate's the overtime, and I probably was a little bit high on that.
You overestimated on the overtime, is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and then in recycling, we were short 100,000. So what happened there that we underestimated, and did we not make as much in white goods? Did we have more yard waste? How do we incur being short $100,000?
It was primarily the yard waste that we contract out for. That was close to $100,000.
And why is that? Do we need to take a look at how we're handling the yard waste? Do we need to take a look at how much we're charging for white goods? I mean, that seems to be a lot of, that's $100,000 short, and I think we need to take a look at that.
No, I agree with you. We have to watch that closely this coming year, especially the yard waste account. And when I brought it to the director's attention, he's really going to take a look at that.
The director of?
Public Works.
Public Works, okay. And maybe if I know the mayor's engaged over there in another conversation, but could I ask the mayor a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, if you would.
Mayor, I know you were engaged in a side conversation, so I had a question about the $100,000 we were short in the recycling that we're trying to offset with other monies with this transfer request. And we were just told that it's from the yard waste that we are contracted out $100,000 more in yard waste. Are we doing anything to address that moving forward? Because is there a better way that we can do this to collect the yard waste and be, not come up short?
Yep, good question. If possible, Counselor, if we've had a couple of recent meetings with JRM to talk about a number of things, including the barrels and other things that we have, as a committee, have been talking about. Could we perhaps put this on the council meeting for the next agenda or whenever is appropriate? I think a broader discussion on this would be very valuable, but I think your questions are good. I just think it might allow us to kind of get some information.
No, I'm glad you're willing to put it in the forefront and discuss it. So I will do that. Thank you for that suggestion. Because we really don't get that much time throughout the year to collect, to put out our yard waste, and it's very frustrating to citizens to only be able to put them out, on certain times. I know that you work to extend it some seasons, but then to hear that we're still $100,000 short and we're not really getting that much service, in my opinion. So I appreciate your willingness to put it on the table, so we'll do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item C on the agenda, capital equipment, amount of $39,682.40. Mr. Gingrich.
Thank you. This is a request from Brooksby Farm to purchase a new donut machine to streamline their process, and I think the one that they have
We
is...
got to approve this. You can't stop the donuts.
Joanne and Jen Davis are here if there's any questions.
Anybody got any objections with this? No. Councilor Rossi, no.
Mr. Chairman, actually, I only have one question regarding the old equipment and what our plans are for it. Are we going to, what's the current state of the machine? Are we going to try to resell it? Are we going to use it for scrap? Are we going to be able to recoup any funds as we get rid of the old and in with the new?
Good evening. We actually are still going to continue to use that machine, so this will be in addition to that machine. We've been putting all our effort into that machine, hoping it stays working, doesn't break. Now with a new machine, we'll have a little bit more peace of mind. If it goes down, we still have one to continue making donuts.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank goodness. Any further questions? Seeing none? Oh, Councilman McGinn, if you make the motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve transfer from Brooksby Farm Revolving, account number 260-0000035603, in the amount of $39,682.40 to capital equipment, account number 300-09421-58-506-2020-0000006620, and an amount of $39,682.40. So moved.
On the motion? Questions? None? Roll call.
Councilors McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Time to make the donuts. Next item on the agenda is the transfer of funds for the cable fund expense, $235,489.54. Mr. Gingrich.
Thank you. This is the first use of the new cable fee revolving fund that was recently established. We just took in $261,655, and we're going to be transferring $235,000 back to the PAT.
Money in, money going sideways. Any questions? Councilman McGinn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I think it's fully consistent with the explanation we got on this issue. You caused us to probe this a little bit further, and we see the results of how that accounting is now going to work. So, all makes sense. I'll be happy to make that motion.
Go for it.
Move to approve the transfer of Receipts Reserve Cable Fund, account number 270-0000-33017, in an amount of $235,489.54 to Cable Fund Expense, account number 200-0000-53007, in an amount of $235,489.54. So moved.
Heard the motion by Counsel McGinn. Any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin, Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next item on the agenda is transfer of funds from CPC to Memorial and Flagpoles Project in the amount of $12,220.32. Mr. Gingrich.
Thank you. I'd like to make a request to amend the amount. I just got a vote overnight from the CPC. They wanted to add an additional $1,080.04 for the materials that they needed to put up the poles. So that would change the vote request to $13,300.36.
And I think, if I could, Mr. Chairman, these were for the 3 projects, poles and stones for the Jim Rice Memorial at the Higgins Middle School, the Steve Donaldson dedication flag and pole at Symphony Park. Steve Donaldson was killed in Vietnam. He grew up on Nom Keg, which is right at Symphony. It was a terrific ceremony. And then this was also a flagpole that was installed at Brooksby Farm. We didn't have a flagpole there. We had a 9/11 ceremony at Brooksby Day yesterday. So this is the funds for those 3 projects. Happy to answer any questions on those.
I only have one question. Are they allowed to just call you up and ask you to make a change? Because all the other changes are voted on by them. So they have you have a vote? Okay. Can we receive the vote for the record? Motion is to receive the vote of the CPC to increase the funding for this project.
So moved.
You heard the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Is a vote. Any questions on the flagpole memorial project? Seeing none. Council Manning Martin.
Motion to approve the CPC request for transfer of $12,220.32 to the CPC Memorial Flag Poles Project. So moved.
We'll just amend that to $13,300.36.
So amended. Thank you.
On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin,
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next is the transfer of funds for road improvement projects in the amount of $1,248,141. Mr. Gingrich.
Yes, this is a formal request to appropriate the Chapter 90 money for this fiscal year for the $1.2 million. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Council Manning Martin.
motion to approve the Chapter 90 projects FY 2020 request for $1,248,141 transferred to road improvement projects of the same number. So moved.
On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors McGinn,
Yes.
Rozignol,
Yes.
Manning Martin, Gould. Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next item is the transfer of funds for cemetery capital improvement, $156,750. Mr. Gingrich.
Yeah, thank you. The cemetery department's requesting this amount for various projects for capital improvements at the cemetery, and Taylor's here if you have any questions.
Any questions? Council Rossignol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one. Number 2, Oak Grove Foundation. Could you just lighten me what that is?
The foundations, that's what the headstones lay on. We lay them in lengths now. We don't dig them, say, individual per headstone.
Got it. Thank you.
Council Melville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. Taylor, when you were back here, I noticed that you have chapel repair and office repair. Is that the idea behind that the chapel will start being used for services or could be used in the future?
That's the start. I need to get the chimney repointed. That's on the agenda for right now. Jim Heafy and Dave Gamache are looking into that with me. But that's the start to make the building safe and sound. They're also going to repoint around a lot of cracks and so on in the foundation. So that's a start to get the outside ready, and then hopefully in the spring, maybe next fall, come back for more money and start doing the inside.
It's a really beautiful building in Cedar Grove, and it'd be nice if that could ever be utilized in the future. Thank you.
Any other questions, Council Manning Martin?
No questions, but I'd be happy to make the motion.
Thank you.
The cemeteries are kind of our pride and joy, so keep up the good work. I know you had a great mentor to take over from, so, you know, continue the good work. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve transfer from cemetery sales of lots and graves of $56,750 and cemetery perpetual care of $100,000 transferred to the cemetery capital improvements for equaling $156,750. So moved.
Heard the motion by Council Manning Martin. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin. Gould.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 5 to
Accept the
nothing.
motion to adjourn. So moved. We're going to open a meeting of the Committee of the Whole. I'd like to have a motion to convene into the executive session of the Mayor's Office to discuss pending litigation regarding Cellco Partnership, DBA, Verizon Wireless versus City of Peabody et al., and to go into executive session. I'll need that in the form of a motion. Who will make the motion? You'll make the motion? On the motion, any discussion? Roll call.
Councilors Mitsoulas. Melville.
Yes.
O'Neill.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Sasslaw. Charis. Gould. Gravel.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Motion carries 11 to nothing.